Can everyone see that?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I'll give a little bit of background for Wallscope, how we came about, why we started building this company. Several years ago, we were involved in a project in NHS Kent to look at modern technology to help people with beginning dementia to offset the onset of the disease. So through that process, we got involved in several projects, which were more to do with semantic technologies. That's why one of the focus of our business is on knowledge graphs and linked data. That project was, I would say, a miserable failure. So we went off and got involved in several projects, which took us on this journey to build our own software platform to enable these kind of technologies. So there's a lot of things that you need to realize when you do start looking at different technologies. They're not always suitable for what you need them for. So AI has become a buzzword. Machine learning is also another buzzword. But actually what you're doing is looking at machine processes to enable you to make better decision making on available data, whether that's open data, private data, public data. But it's not always the right approach for your particular problem. So it's really important when not to use machine learning or AI, as people call it. And obviously, it's never going to replace the human element in any kind of process. So it doesn't replace creativity, intuition, or critical thinking. It just gives you enabling tools for any organization, whether it's private, public, to have a look and try and understand the problem first, and then to try and deal with it. And also because it is a buzzword now, there's all kinds of companies bigger than us selling solutions to problems that you don't have. So I think it's really important that people understand what your actual problem is. So what can it do for you? Well, it can do an awful lot. Our speciality is in natural language processing, and we've combined that with different technologies, as I mentioned earlier, semantic technologies. To make any machine learning model work, you need to train it, and you need enough data. You need a critical mass of data to be able to train it on. And you also need to have a very specific problem that you're trying to solve, or you're trying to capture a certain amount of knowledge within a particular sector or use case. So what it does, it finds patterns, it extracts value, and we like to say it extracts knowledge from available data. And because we're focused on natural language processing, we can ingest all kinds of statistical data, but then we like to match that up with free text data, which is really one of the hardest things to capture. And there's right and wrong ways of doing this. So at the moment, we're sponsoring a PhD with Angleside with sponsored by us, the Data Lab and Harriet Watt. And one of the first problems that was a lot mentioned earlier in the talk about ethics and doing things the right way. It turned out when he started his PhD in conversational agents for people with cognitive impairments, there was no ethical policy in place in the university or with Data Lab or other organizations to be able to deal with capturing data from actual patients. So a lot of that time has been spent in creating one. So that's now there. There's an ethical framework to be able to work with these kind of technologies. And that's something that's still missing, I would say, within government, within academic institutions, and I think especially within private sector institutions, such as banks. So I think a lot of work's been done in that area, which hasn't been done before. So a good example of how not to do it is when Microsoft released their Tay chatbot a few years ago, and just released it into the wild on Twitter, which in itself can be a cesspit. And lo and behold, the results that they got out was really unethical and completely irresponsible. So I think it's good to have a good practical understanding of what actually this kind of technology does and doesn't do and shouldn't do. So we make a big point of what we call knowledge mapping before we work with any client or any institution. So we really do need to understand what is it, what kind of data are we dealing with? Are we allowed to use it? Is it ethical to use it? Who will benefit from the use case of it? Particularly with open data, I think that's an extremely good use case, because there is an awful lot of open data from the Scottish government, from the NHS in Scotland, from all kinds of international organizations like the World Health Organization. And you can see extremely useful use cases for using statistical modeling or algorithms working over, for instance, the John Hopkins Institute, their daily publication of COVID data. It just helps everybody, and that you can see an absolute use case in that. So one thing you do need to, particularly for the World Health Organization, they are medical pandemic experts. So you must work with an expert in their field if you're dealing with specialized information, because we're a data company, a data solution company. We're not experts in fields such as in health. So we've worked for a long time with NHS Scotland over the last 4 or 5 years, and we've come up with different solutions which can help them in their day-to-day living. So one use case for the knowledge mapping was to be deeply involved with clinicians to understand how they write their data into their clinical correspondence. And then we developed a method of how we can extract that knowledge from those digital documents. We could do all kinds of things. We could take away the personal demographics as who being treated, the diagnostic information held within the documents. And then from there, we could do something outside of that, which they haven't done within the document, is assign medical codes to them. So that's kind of a categorization process, which could turn out to be really useful for any kind of medical setting. So how does our software work? We have to extract all the data. We've got machine learning models which can categorize the data. And if you look at the top of this graphic, we've got genes, proteins, diseases, drugs, chemical species, DNA information. And then we know what category the kind of information held within the free text is that we're looking for. And we can pick them all up. And we can go much further than that. And what we're doing then within our particular software stack, we're extracting that information, and then we're placing that into a knowledge graph, already categorized into a structured format, which can be consumed by any kind of interface or any kind of application that needs that specific information. And at the moment, we've got all kinds of models which have been tried and tested. So we can look for any kind of people, including fictional characters, nationality, religions, buildings. We can recognize companies, agencies, countries, geographic information. We can recognize works of arts. We can recognize events, and even percentages and numeric values. So when it comes to the workflow of what we're doing, the first place is to consume the data, any file type, and that can be from an API, that can be from a legacy document store. It could also be the statistical information published by the Scottish government. And we can put that all through the natural language processing or different machine learning models, or an aggregation algorithm if that's necessary. And that goes into a knowledge graph. Once we have the knowledge graph, we can also run machine learning models over what's in the knowledge graph, and we can separate out that piece of knowledge which can be turned into any kind of interactive interface for any kind of use case. And that's what makes this particular method really powerful, because we can deliver, using our knowledge mapping, we know what kind of people need what kind of information, and we work with the industry, people, experts in their own industry, in understanding those personas and those user journeys, which to extract the information that they're trying to achieve. And one of the main advantages of using knowledge graph, which Untitled explained earlier. It builds the relationships between the entities that we've extracted it pretty much automatically, and also we get the inferred relationships. So if we know that Untitled Dart lives in Edinburgh, he's working for Wallscope, he visits this GP, he's got these prescriptions, then we know an awful lot about, through inferred knowledge, just by grabbing 2 or 3 details of what we know about him. So we can have very powerful analytic interfaces or statistical interfaces for any kind of use case, either for the general public, for data scientists working within the government or academia, or whichever kind of customer we're working with or client we're working with. I'm calling them clients, but whatever kind of client we have, it's always a collaborative effort. We never just go and make assumptions. We must go through this knowledge mapping exercise to make sure we're doing the right thing. So any kind of data source that includes IoT devices, content management systems, CRM systems, any kind of database, any kind of CSV dump, we can run through our engine, and then we can place that into a knowledge graph, and then we can filter out who needs to see what from the knowledge graph through the relationship they have with the data or the interest they have with the data. And from there, we can build specific interfaces specifically for the persona that's using this data, and for specifically for their use case. So I've said at the bottom, machine learning plus linked data or semantic technologies, that really is an enabling artificial intelligence technology at the moment. I've gone through this quite quickly because I know we're pushed for time, but if anyone's got any questions, please let me know. But I'm going to hand this over.
There's a question, Ian, there's a question from Ellen Kerr, and I'll read it to you. Does the process rely on data completeness, or would that be a pre-processed exercise?
That depends on the data. If we're dealing with statistical data, for instance, from the Scottish government, we make assumptions that it's validated, that is correct. When we're talking about free text extraction, that's slightly different because there is a margin of error, and also people use language in different ways, and it's really important to understand how people use language in their day-to-day life. So we know, for instance, that GPs, they have short codes for different kinds of patients, which most of them I would probably call rude in general societal terms, but knowing how they reference different kinds of illness or the behaviors of different kinds of patients is really important to understand. So that's kind of a deep learning process that we have to go through as humans before we let a machine learning model loose on that. So that validation process we must go through really quite rigorously, especially if it's critical data like clinical data.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can you see it, Ray? Is that come up okay, sir?
Yeah.
Marvellous. Good afternoon, everyone. We thank you for your time, your interest, and your patience on behalf of everyone across the panels. My name is John Murdoch. Information down the bottom. John Murdoch 40 at LinkedIn. At John Murdoch 40 for those that would like to follow me on Twitter. That's an ambition, and I'm trying to knock at least 12 years off my age. Please feel free to follow. Phone numbers down there as well. Email address I'll pop out at the end. I've worked with David and the guys at Wallscope for a number of years. I was 22 years at IBM Scotland. So hello to all those listening that I've had the pleasure of meeting before. As I transitioned out of IBM and moved into Celerity, I kept the relationship going. It was incredibly interesting, dynamic technology, and I was very keen to ensure that Celerity were wrapped around the propositions and some of the creative stuff that the guys were doing. hence Celerity being the technology partner working with Wallscope across the stack. Fundamentally, we're looking at right data, right place, right time, from secure data vault, either on your prem, off-prem, via preferred delivery vehicle, and we can manage and hold that under compliance for you. So if it's an offload of the data to say we need it to be GDPR compliant, we need to fall to these rules, we again can pick up that element of it for and with you as an organization. So fundamentally, it's right up the stack in relation to redundant, obsolete trivia, etc., etc. So we have grown over our 15 years from being a data company. So who are we? We're Celerity. Been on the go for about 18 years now. Privately owned. 4 locations across the UK, 50 plus people, and we have the business split realistically across 3-4 data centres. We own our own SOC, Security Operations Centre, combine that with our own NOC, the Network Ops Centre, and that is HQ'd out of, well, Sunderland, basically, a place called Doxford. So anything we provide, secure and hold for our customers typically sits under highly compliant, highly robust and highly secure protocols. Sectors we work in, we're across the whole piece. So public sector right the way through to all the commercial. If I drop a couple of names just to show where and how we're perceived and who trusts us, Ministry of Defence trusts us with our data. Royal Mint trusts us with their data. If I start at the top of the country, we have NHS Orkney and Shetland as customers. We've been engaged and supported those guys from a technology point of view for over 10 years now, I believe. Arnold Clark are a major customer where we supply the technology for their 2 main business systems. I take it slightly below the Hadrian's firewall, if you like. We have Nissan, Northumbrian Water, Cumbria City, and we're a major supplier to Barclays as well as Lockheed Martin. So as a company, we punch significantly above our weight in relation to the customer base we have and what we deliver. We hold securely across our data centres. It's now about 6.5 petabytes of data, all under different compliance rules, all under different security rules, all under different governance rules for those particular customers, whether it's a retention policy of 30 days or 10 years, we will work and hold that data under those rules for you. So that's who we are. Small company, 18 years of age, 50 plus people. I say a small company. Now if I move on to some of the accreditations and what we hold as a company, highly accredited across all the ISOs, Cyber Essentials, we're on all the buying frameworks from a Crown Commercial and a public sector point of view. So we have gone through the diligence, gone through all those exercises, and as I say, we fundamentally sit on all of them. So any route from any of the public sector organisations, we will be able to engage with Wallscope and supply those solutions under those sort of rules of engagement. From a commercial point of view, we sit on a number of platforms as well, whether it's the Jaeger one, which is Berkshire Hathaway's, or any of the other major ones out there. So again, any particular formal route any of the customers need to come through, we can support that. That's just some of the accreditations we hold. Again, from a partner point of view, we hold all the sort of top accreditations across the partners. Platinum IBM Business Partner through to being a Gold Oracle Partner. So again, if it's delivery of a service, a product, support, consultancy, expertise across any of those, we can deliver those as well. Why Celerity? I think the bottom left-hand point sort of sums it up. Delivering true value in a data-driven world. Every conversation we have with our customers is focused on one of 2 streams. How do I exploit my data? And how do I ensure that that data is actually correct, uncorrupted, compliant, and I'm not going to get a huge fine from it. We deliver that through a highly experienced team. We can be assessment-based. We can remove layers of the complexity for you, so it's a confidence-based statement. We need this data held, cleaned, and supplied to us like this. That's exactly how that data will supply to you. If we're managing for and on your behalf the data streams coming in, whether it's from marketing data, customer data, NHS data, and that needs to be set in a set of policies. That data stream will be delivered to you under those policies as well. Fundamentally, we're focused on that digital transformation and the business transformation that every organisation seems to be ongoing with just now. And data is at the heart of that. And we position ourselves strongly as that technology partner. What we do, manage service across data centre, multi-cloud, on-premise and hybrid. So if your preference is a mixed cloud environment, if your preference is to take from Celerity an on-prem cloud where we supply the tech into your data center, very, very happy to work with that. If it's about orchestration across different cloud platforms to ensure data is in the right place at the right time at the right cost, we can orchestrate that across in-house, hybrid, multi-cloud, Azure, Google, whatever the terminology is you would like to wrap around the complexity of the cloud world. We're also a traditional partner where we can engage directly, put kit on the floor for you, and operate, manage and maintain and support that for you. This is sort of positions quickly the stack and how we would see the delivery model working with Wallscope. And Celerity can supply the infrastructure. We can work on your own infrastructure. We can work on your own cloud platform. We do not need to supply or engage across the whole stack. The areas where we would advise and drive and support Wallscope would be on the service desk, which we run out of our Doxford office. That's an ITIL-based help service desk, full support stack, governed under those particular conditions. So as I say, formal, process-driven, conforms to the ITIL steps. All of the ISO and the governance that we have and have accredited fall within there as well. For customers looking for a full managed service, we can offer that right across the stack, simplification, automation, and we can also monitor and adapt the environment for you. So again, fully delivered, if required, as a service that will always be available with the data clean and compliant, in the right place, at the right time, on the right cost model if it's moving across multiple clouds and multiple platforms. Just to wrap up, Celerity, as I say, it's cloud, data center, data management, highly cyber, highly secure. We have our own SOC. We're in a fairly unique position in relation to that, and we can manage, monitor, control, and ensure the governance across all elements of the data that you're working with. Thank you for your time. I will hand back to you, Louis. I didn't want to linger too much, sir. Mine's is not the interesting bit.
Thank you very much, John.